Hi, I'm Jean Schumacher, founder of Simply Plant Based, where I provide a lot of programs for you to help change your health destiny, from the weight loss advantage to the pregnancy advantage coming in January of 2020 to now corporate wellness and continuing education. I have the privilege of being here today with the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll, who is the host of the Exam Room podcast from PCRM, otherwise known as the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today.
It's an honor and a privilege. Thanks for having me.
Well, I've heard bits and pieces of your story, but I want to hear the entire journey. I mean, like, how much weight have you lost?
Right around 280 pounds.
Quite that's
a few.
A couple people.
It is a couple of people. Yeah, I'm literally a third of the man that I used to be. You know, it's been about 10 years since I've lost the weight, and every day I still wake up and feel brand new. It's the most extraordinary feeling in the entire world.
Share your story. Come on.
Come on, she wants more. She wants more.
I do. Right. Come on, give us the details.
All right, so it all started on a summer's day, August 28th, 1982, when I was brought into this world. So here's the deal. I was always overweight growing up. And I think part of that was a product of, being in a single parent household. Mom was working, didn't have a whole lot of time. So a lot of our meals were through the drive-through. And then after school, my brother and I would go over to our grandma's house, and she, God bless her, sweet little dumpling of a woman, but she was not the healthiest cook in the world. We would go over there and it would be, macaroni and cheese and hot dogs and French fries and potato chips and hamburgers and, just deli meats, and everything was cooked on the stove with bacon grease. She had a jar of bacon grease that she set on top of the stove, and it didn't really matter what she was making. She could be making a pot of coffee, but inevitably a scoop of bacon grease would wind up in that. So that's just kind of the diet that I was brought up with. By the time I was in the second or third grade, I was already well over 100 pounds. Weight just continued to pile on. By the time I graduated from high school, I was close to 300. And
that had to be awful. That had to be.
I mean, yes, it was, but at the same time, it was kind of all I knew. So there was a sense of normalcy that came with being so overweight. Really, as the years progressed and I kept getting heavier and heavier, like, I knew that I was overweight, but it's really hard to kind of grasp just how large I had become. And there were times when, just like everybody else, when I would be able to lose a significant amount of weight, sometimes as much as 80 pounds, but it would come back on, and then the extra 20 or 40 that came on top of that. So that was
vengeance.
Oh yeah. And I mean, it would take me forever to lose it, but it seemed like within a matter of weeks, all of it had piled back on. And
that is just not fair. I'm sorry, it's not fair.
No, man.
So hard.
It's a total raw deal. It is a total raw deal. Eventually I get all the way up to 420 pounds, and I maxed out with a 66-inch waist and was wearing a 6XL shirt. But at that time, I was also on the radio working for a station here in Washington, D.C., WBIG, Big 100.3. So that's kind of how I justified at that point maintaining that enormous size. I thought that I had to be that person. I kind of convinced myself that I had to be that person, even as unhealthy as that was. That was my ticket to showbiz. So that was my justification until I eventually just I couldn't take it anymore. It just caught up with me.
I mean, growing up through high school, I mean, I know how awful kids can be. Did you have any of those kind of issues or problems that kids harassed you, or?
I did, but not to the extent that so many others have. Like, really, the ridicule didn't come on until after I had gotten out of high school. For whatever reason, I just managed to kind of click with people in high school. So that wasn't too much of a problem. Again, I just embraced who I was. And I was playing football, and there's always a room for the big guy on the football team, so that wasn't too much of an issue there as well. And my friends were really cool, and nobody really gave me too much guff. And I don't know if that was because they were scared of me or what the deal was, but if anything, it's horrible to say. I mean, I was kind of the bully aggressor in high school a little bit. So sorry to anybody that I may have been a jerk to. But I also struggled a lot with depression, Gene, in high school, and would go great many days in a row without setting foot in class. Like, we're talking, at some points I would miss a month or two at a time.
Really?
And yeah. Depression was a real struggle for me.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and I believe that a great deal of that was also because of my diet, my poor diet. And what I've learned in doing the Exam Room podcast is that strong link between mental health and gut health and overall health. And there's no denying the fact that, if you're not putting good fuel in your body, you're not going to have a happy brain.
Oh,
Um,
it's
and,
true.
cer- and certainly at that point, my diet was anything but good. So bad in and bad was happening upstairs. So I would just stay at home, and there was nothing anybody could do to get me out of my shell.
Really? And your friends, I mean, they couldn't come and get you or bring you out or
I mean, that this was kind of in the era of AOL Instant Messenger, so I would kind of stay in contact with them via that, and then, you know, they were cool. Like, they just kind of knew that I was going to miss a good chunk of time, and when I was there, I just kind of like plugged myself right back in, and it was like we never missed any time together.
what brought you out? I mean, you said you missed a lot of time. What finally just said made you come, okay, I got to come out and get back to life?
Mom took away the cable box.
That was it. Okay.
I'm serious. Like, what fun is it sitting at home when you can't watch trashy TV all day? It was before the days of Netflix, so
Mm.
there weren't many options there. So if mom takes away the cable, like, you better drag your butt to school and get entertained somehow. So I would show up, and then I would wind up cutting class and going hanging out somewhere in the bowels of the school and just shooting the breeze all day.
And no one would catch you? There was no issues with you cutting class or missing or
My school my school experience was quite unique. Like, they just knew that this was going to be the deal with me. And it's not be I guess I just learned how to game the system because I was in good with the attendance lady, and she just knew, like, if I'm there, like, here's your pass, here's your tardy pass. You're supposed to go to detention during lunch, but I never went, and I never really got much of a hand slap for that. Like, matter of fact, I would, on the days that I was late and had to get a pass to go to class, I would call her up. I'd be like, all right, what kind of coffee do you want this morning? And I would bring her that cup of coffee, and like that would just smooth everything over. Like, I had kind of the Ferris Bueller experience in high school a little bit, which was fun when I was there. I don't really know why I wasn't called on the carpet more. I kind of wish I could go back in time, change that about myself. But I mean, that's kind of the way that depression worked. I think that I also tried really hard to be a ham and a likable guy when I was there, just to kind of counter that depression that I was honestly feeling on the inside. So that's that's just kind of how that experience worked out for me.
so what was your aha moment?
For what? Losing weight?
Yeah, that you said I'm done. I mean, were you experiencing health issues? I mean, besides the
Mm.
depression, did that trigger you?
Yeah, there were quite a few things that went through. There wasn't really one aha moment. It was a multitude of moments that happened throughout the years. And it kind of began in high school when I was put on blood pressure medication because, by the time I was a junior, I was probably around 250 or so, and my blood pressure was really out of control. And I remember the doctor putting me on beta blockers and giving me kind of a stern talking to saying that if you don't change your ways, you're going to die. You're going to wind up in an early grave. And of course, that did nothing but piss me off and send me right back to the drive-through. I remember driving home from that appointment and just like pounding my hand on the top of the car as we were driving, just like so pissed off. Who is this doctor to kind of give me this death ultimatum? Like, what did she know? So anyway, I went on blood pressure medication in high school, but that wasn't enough of a wake up call. It was a series of things throughout, the next decade or so that kind of changed my thinking. Some of it had to do with health. Some of it had to do with emotional things. The health stuff, I'd gotten at my heaviest to a point where I couldn't walk across the street without my chest starting to tighten, starting to sweat profusely. I really felt like I was about a step away from having a heart attack. And that's a really scary thing for somebody at this point who is just in their mid 20s. And you think in your mid 20s, you still have your whole life ahead of you. I didn't think that I was going to live to see 30 at that point.
Really?
And that's when reality really started to sink in for me. I was like, oh crap, like I'm in a bad way right now. So not only am I about to get too big to shop at a big and tall store, but I'm going to be too big to even live. And neither one of those prospects really appealed to me. So that was pretty pivotal. Another thing that happened was a flight to San Francisco, which is across
Oh,
country for me. And I remember kind of dreading this because it had been years since I had flown. I was a little kid the last time I had flown before this, but work was sending me across country to San Francisco. And I was like, God, and I'm just not going to be able to fit in this seat. And I was just dreading it. But I was thinking like, maybe I could just sit down there and like squeeze myself as tight as I possibly could and just get that seatbelt to connect. And that's what I was counting on, fingers crossed, saying my prayers. But when I got on the plane, I remember one, feeling like so self-conscious, but two, just realizing that when I turned that corner to board the plane, stepped on the plane, and then started to make my way down the aisle, I felt like everybody who was already on board kind of just stopped and stared at me. And they
oh,
then
don't let
began
him sit
saying their
next to me.
right. They then began saying their own prayers, saying, please, God, don't let this fat guy sit next to me. And every aisle that I passed, it was like a little dagger hitting me right in the heart, like it stung. It stung. And so I go through about 38 rows until I finally get to the 39th out of 40 rows. And I find my seat and I sit down. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to really just cinch myself in here really tight. Let's make this work. And it didn't even come close. And I was just heartbroken. And then I had to get up and walk, just kind of maneuver my way as best as I could back down the aisle in front of every single person who had just had their eyes on me, ask humbly for a seatbelt extender, and walk back to my seat where I just slumped down for the next 5 hours and, just tried not to cry. And so that was a difficult one for me. That one was the eye opener, the straw, I guess, that broke the camel's back, if you want to say that. There are some other things in there. My friends had tried to organize an intervention for me, and I was furious about that as well. It was kind of the same reaction that I had when the doctor put me on blood pressure medication. Like, who are you to tell me that I have a problem? I know that I have a problem, but who are you? Don't tell me that. You're not my friend. Get out of here. And so I cut them out of my life for a little while too. But I'll tell you, the thing that hurt me the most, more than anything, more than the fear of dying, more than the daggers from the eyeballs on the plane, was being in a relationship with a girl who refused to tell her friends, refused to tell her family, refused to tell anybody that we were dating. And I can only surmise that she did that because I was so big and she was ashamed to be with somebody like me. And I thought that this was the best that I could do for a year and a half, I put up with that crap. And that was like a little kick in the butt every single day as well, And so
But
you
you
add
went out
all
in
of that.
public together.
We did, but as friends,
Oh, yeah.
and it just sucked. Like, why was I not good enough? I was on the radio at this point. I had like a little minor celebrity thing happening here in the Washington area, and I still wasn't good enough for this girl. Like, what the hell? It's just because I was so big and I must have been so hideous that she was so ashamed to be with me. But again, my self-esteem was for nothing. So I put up with that crap. And so when you add all of that up together, that was kind of enough was enough for me. And I had to
The
make a
tipping
change.
point.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
Well, it's a funny thing. I knew absolutely jack doodles about a plant-based diet at that point. It was more than a decade ago now. My father and stepmother had had gastric bypass surgery, and I had also had a friend who had it. And so I asked her for the contact information for her surgeon. Now, I will tell you, I love the people that I've named very, very much. But like so many others who have had the procedure, they have lost a significant amount of weight and then put a significant amount of it back on, some more than others. And so that I figured was going to be what would happen with me as well. But at least at this point, I could say, well, I have done everything possible to lose this weight. And now I can go to my grave with my head held high because I put in the good fight. I did everything I possibly could to get healthy, and it just wasn't in my cards. God wanted me to be fat. So I was just resigned to fail, even though I was going ahead with this surgery. But funny thing kind of happened after that. I woke up and I felt so bad after that surgery. Like I had been run over by two semi-tractor trailers. And I was like, I am never putting another piece of garbage in my body again, because this is the worst I've ever felt in my entire life.
Did you have
And I just kind of,
complications from the surgery, or you just had a
no,
reaction to the anesthesia, or
no, it
you
was
just
just like, this
recover
wasn't a
well?
laparoscopic procedure. So I was literally, my abdomen was sliced wide the heck open. I was filleted like a friggin' fish. And so I couldn't move. My intestines had been rewired. My core, my abdomen was just like shredded. And I was just laying there feeling like, oh my God, what have I done to myself? Never the frig again. And so I was like, I'm just not going to do it. And so from that day forward, McDonald's had become the enemy. Taco Bell, which I was woefully addicted to, could not go a day without going to Taco Bell. I excommunicated that out of my life as well. And just moving forward, like I've never had another bite of fast food since that time. And over as the years progressed, I just became more and more of a student of nutrition. From that very first day, I just made my mind. I was like, I have really screwed up my system to get to this point, and I'm going to work my ass off now to make sure that I never, ever, ever am back at this same operating table again. Because here's the funny thing about this is, like, we were talking about the failure rate of weight loss surgery. My surgeon going in on the day of consultation, you tell me if you think this is crazy as I do, told me that if this first procedure doesn't work, you can go back in for what they call a revisionist surgery. Like, why wouldn't it work the first time? Come on.
Because you don't change what you're eating, and that's the problem.
Yep. Yep.
And people, I know so many people that have done this surgery, and you're like the only one that I know that has maintained the weight loss. Because yes, you lose weight for a minute, but then you're continuing to eat the same foods that got you into the same situation, and then eventually your stomach stretches out.
Yep. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
They really don't school you up on nutrition at all. They give you a menu that's, they kind of baby step you back to food. It starts with liquids and then pureed and soft food, etc. But the menu is really kind of, meat heavy, because they stress protein, protein, protein. And of course,
No.
not knowing anything about nutrition at that point, I thought, okay, well, this is healthy. But at least it wasn't fast food, so I just kind of went with it. So I lived off of that menu and MetaFast for the first couple of years. Um, but I'll tell you, like, I don't know. Have you ever had anybody on your show that has spoken about food addiction?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm like the first to go, hi, I'm Jean Schumacher. I'm a food addict. I mean, I
Yeah,
am very
yeah,
much.
yeah.
It's
And,
real. It's real.
oh my God, it is so real. It is as real as you and I are sitting here talking to each other right now.
Hmm.
Um, I, the thing that I am most grateful for with the surgery more than anything else was it helped me break that food addiction, which was so severe. Like I mentioned Taco Bell and said that I couldn't go a day without it. I literally could not go a day without it. Taco Bell was my cocaine. If I did not get my Taco Bell fix, I would become a raging jerk that you did not want to be around. Like it was Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, big time. Like we were talking about two different personalities here. And every time I would try to diet, I would go through a detox. And by the second day, like I would start to feel physically ill and I was an irritable SOB. And by the third night, like I was just out of control to the point where I one time put my fist through a wall and then through a door and then still snuck out in the middle of the night to get my $20 worth of Taco Bell just so I could calm down. And I remember coming back that particular night after putting my fist through the wall, coming back, sitting down and taking that first bite and just feeling this warm rush of calm just wash over me as I ate that. And I ate it with tears streaming down my face because I knew I was killing myself. I knew I was failing on this diet. And I knew I was going to be letting a lot of people down who were pulling for me to finally lose weight. But there was nothing I could do because the pull of this damn
True.
food was so strong.
It's true. And it's just as bad as what the cigarette industry did. And in the beginning, cigarettes were really harsh on our throats, and you'd be like, coughing with good reason because you're trying to put smoke into your lungs. So then they started adding sugar to the tobacco and curing the tobacco with sugar so it would smooth out the flavor of the tobacco. And so then you were able to, oh yes, this is much smoother in my throat, and then if that wasn't bad enough, then they started adding more nicotine to the cigarettes. So they were even more addictive that you couldn't stop it. And it's the same thing with the food industry. Have you read the book Fat, Sugar, Salt by Michael Moss?
No, but I think I should.
It's a good one.
Okay.
He is a Pulitzer Prize research journalist, and he's not a food person, but he, like, the tobacco industry, the cigarettes, he said, I'm going to investigate this. And he started investigating the food. And they have what's called a bliss point. That's what you're hitting. And it's releasing this dopamine into your brain. And you're constantly chasing after that. It's chasing the dragon. And you're
Yep.
constantly going after that. And that first bite that releases so much dopamine, you're never going to get that same reaction again, but you keep pursuing it. And then, by the end, you've got an empty bag, sitting dead soldier on the front seat of the car, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and
it's very true.
that's a good one. If anybody has not read that, it's called Fat, Sugar, Salt by Michael Moss. And he did an expose on the food industry, and they're increasing. And my husband came up with this term. He calls it turbocharging the food. So you're turbocharging and increasing the amount of fat, sugar, and salt that literally is lighting your brain up like as if you were on cocaine or heroin. I mean, it's
Hmm.
that addictive. And
Hmm.
I think it was Dr. Barnard in one of his lectures that I've been to, he talked about a gene that when he was doing, I think, research with two groups. One was following, I think, the American Diabetes Association diet, and another group was following, plant-based. And he said there was a subset of both groups that just could not, had a hard time really like giving up cheese and, this, the addictive stuff. And came to find out that both subsets of both groups had this one gene. And I'm like, oh my God, that's my family. That's my family. We
Yep.
have this gene. We don't have, this. We all smoked for like a minute in high school, college, and then we're like, yeah, this sucks. And then we all quit that. We don't, we're not big alcoholics. I mean, I hate drinking. I really do. I'm not a fan of alcohol at all. And my brothers might have a glass, beer or something like that, but that's it. No addiction to alcohol or drugs, but food. Oh, please. Our family get-togethers are like, who can bring, we have this unofficial competition to see who can bring the highest caloric density, worst possible dish for you that's going to bang your pleasure center like ding, 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 ding. Like, I got to have this.
Yep. Yep.
And, and that's what we do. When we get together, it's food. That's it. That's all we do. We eat food. We talk
Yeah.
and visit and eat food.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's what my whole both sides of my family are like this. I mean, like ridiculously so.
Yeah.
And and I think part of it is the environment, but also it's that addicting quality. I mean, just like will make you get up in the middle of the night and drive your car to Taco Bell that's conveniently open for late night.
24 hours, fourth meal. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I mean,
I mean, were
it's
there
tough.
besides the depression, were there other health issues you faced? I mean, before, you had high blood pressure.
High blood pressure. I mean, my whole body freaking ached.
Well, you were
I'm
carrying
sure
a phenomenal load
yeah.
day in and day out. I mean, could
Yeah.
you imagine like carrying that, like strapping bowling balls on you right now to equal your weight and carrying that around?
I couldn't stand up. I could not support what I used to weigh. I couldn't even come close to it. Like I would just collapse under that. And it's just a miracle to me that I was ever able to support that. If I squat down now, I have the creaky knees because of the years of damage. It's just bizarre. To answer your question, I need to go back and look at my old medical records, but I'm sure my cholesterol was through the roof. I mean, I'm dead certain I was pre-diabetic, well on my way to being full-blown diabetic, and just facing a whole host of other issues. I've seen my old medical chart from before I had the surgery, and I mean, this thing is like, an unabridged version of the dictionary. This thing is just massive, massive. So
Yeah.
there are quite a few things in there. It used to be a game to me, like, can I check every illness off of the book? Because you go to the doctor's office and they have this chart where they just check off, okay, what does he have today? And I used to get chronically ill.
Yeah.
Sinus infections almost every single month. And inevitably they would always turn into bronchitis as well. It would happen so quickly too.
And then once it would take forever to heal, like your
Oh
body
yeah.
to get back into normal. And this is something that I've noticed, since I've been plant-based and I've really changed a lot in terms of my health. I see, like, I hardly ever, and I have kids coughing, hacking, sneezing on me all day long. Okay. Small classroom. And my peers will get whatever the crud is going around. And it seems like it takes them weeks and weeks and weeks to get rid of it. And then as soon as they get rid of it, then they pick up the next thing that's come down the pike at the school. But I don't seem to get them. I don't. And if I do get sick, it's not to say that I don't get sick, but if I do get sick, it's like for a day, like I'll huddle in bed, pull up the covers and, just kind of fast and we're done, but then I'll be like, okay, I'm hungry. Let's get up and let's go. And I'm fine. But my peers seem to have weeks and weeks of just, battling the flu or crud or whatever, sniffles, and it just seems like it's chronic all the time.
Yeah.
Not enough that they would take a day off from work, because it's more work, as a teacher, you provide sub plans, then you have to come back and correct that. And, it's like, I'll come into school,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
make those sub plans anyway. But what was it like? I mean, to be that obese? I mean, there's people don't realize that there's little things that you can't easily do. I mean, how did that affect your life?
It kind of sucked. I mean, like there were little things that would happen. I remember, I was driving this little Chevy Aveo at the time. I wasn't making a whole heap of money, so That was what I could afford. It's this big guy in this little teeny tiny car, and eventually, the car wound up, having a tilt to it. Even when I wasn't in it, like the frame had just bent a little bit, so it was, always down on the driver's side. So that was, kind of interesting, but like you certainly couldn't go on rides. I couldn't fit through a turnstile to go to a game, and I was a big sports fan. I was always fearful that I'd get stuck in the turnstile. Friends wanted to go to an amusement park. I would just have to kind of like stand by while they were on the roller coaster. Not that I'm a huge roller coaster guy, but I don't, who wants to be that guy that doesn't participate in things? And
Like they have the seats now outside of, like, if you go to like Six Flags, and it's like, here's a sample of this seat. You might want to try it before you get in line,
yeah,
Who wants to be trying to fit themselves into the seat and can't,
no.
you know?
Well, I couldn't fit into the big boy chair anyway, so it was kind of a moot point. But I remember also there was a time when I stepped on a set of wooden stairs and I broke them. Like my foot literally went through the stairs, almost took a tumble. That was quite embarrassing. Broken chairs, things like that. It just all kind of added up. Couldn't even buckle the seatbelt in my car after a while. So
I didn't think
yeah.
about that one.
hmm hmm
Wow.
So it was tough. Like it was hard being a big guy doing lots of little things throughout the day that so many of us just take for granted. You just couldn't do.
Give me an example.
I just ran through them. So it's
Well, give me
you
some
don't.
more.
Oh my gosh, come on, girl.
Well, people
Um,
don't realize when you're that big. I mean, even just like bending over trying to tie your shoe. Could you tie your
yeah,
shoe?
that sucked. Couldn't fit into a movie theater seat. Could barely. Here's the gross one. Could barely wipe myself in the restroom. Like right before the surgery, I'd gotten to a point where I needed a wiping assist wand. I don't know what you want to call that, but that certainly
Oh.
sucked. So I never felt like I could get really clean, which that sounds like such a small thing, but man, after I lost weight, that was the greatest thing in the world. And then, it's just not feeling like a leper, and being able to buy clothes off of the rack.
Right? Oh my God.
That was huge.
Well,
That was huge.
they've got a store. You probably don't shop there, but they have two sides of the store. So you walk in the front door, and then one side is for the larger person. The other side is for the normal size. And, I always shopped on the larger side, okay? And I had started losing my weight, and I didn't know what size I was. And I needed some clothes because my clothes were just like bagging off of me. And so my husband and I went shopping, and I just said, I got to get a couple things. And so he goes, okay, fine. So he hates shopping, so he's like standing there with my purse, one of those men sitting there with the chair with the purse.
Been there.
So I'm in the back, and the woman comes and they're really great about helping you. So this woman keeps bringing clothes into me, and I'm like, she's like, what size? I have no clue what size I am, and I'm trying all these clothes on. And the clothes aren't fitting and not fitting. They're still too big. And so she finally comes back and says, here, try these pants on. And I'm like, and I come out and they're like, these fit. And she's like, well, that was from the other side. And I'm like, the normal side? That side? And she's like, yeah, you don't fit into this side anymore. And I'm like, I just sat back there and started crying. I mean, like boo-hooing, and my husband's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, oh, I even fit into the normal side. He's like, isn't that a good thing? I mean, he's like, I don't understand this. This doesn't compute. And I'm like,
right.
but I'm like, because he doesn't. He doesn't understand, what it's like to be overweight. I mean, I never hit as much as you did. I mean, my highest was 270, and yeah, that was pretty big. I mean, just like you said, being trying to fit into seats, and have seat belts and all of that. I mean, that was awful. I mean, I barely squeeze the seatbelt together, but still you're just like, I can't breathe,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna move, and
Yeah.
that I know exactly what that's like. I mean, it's horrendous. But when you can just walk into a store and pick
That's the
something up
best.
off the rack in the normal size section, oh,
It's the
that's
best. And like
huge.
what I found is you have so many more colors and styles to choose from now as well,
Right?
as opposed to just always, drab colors, despite the fact I'm wearing a black sweater today. I mean, I'm typically wearing, purples and reds and
I remember
greens and
when I came down to the podcast, you were bright yellow and red. I mean, it was
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So like I love that now. So I love being able to, wear those colors and being able to fit in them and not have to worry about looking like the Kool-Aid man. So, like that's really still a thrill for me after all these times.
It
And I
still
just
is.
and I just flew this past week a number of times, and I get the biggest kick out of just being able to sit right down in the seat and snap on that seat belt and like pull it tight because I got plenty of room now.
And to
It's
be able
it's
to
the
move
little
around,
things.
because like I still have, I call it fat brain. I still have it, and like I'll get into my car, and it's not that big of a car, but I'm like, I have all this room, and it's just like around me, and all this space, and
Yep.
it's so awesome. That still makes me happy. And the miracle of the underwear.
You're gonna have to explain that one to me.
Every day I hold up my underwear and go, yeah, that's not going to fit on me. And every day I put it on and it fits. And
So
it's the
that's
miracle of the underwear.
the miracle of the underwear.
It's
Oh
true.
my God, that is classic. Okay, it is the little things. That
It
is
is.
amazing.
It is. Because I hold up my underwear and I'm like, yeah, there's no way that and I still think of it as my big ass, my big,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
have to tell you this story. This one's great. I speak Spanish. I'm pretty fluent in Spanish. And because I lived in South America for 13 years. And I lived in Ashland, Kentucky, which is pretty much a monoculture. Okay. Like nobody spoke Spanish, like
Hmm.
nobody. And I'm in the grocery store, and actually the manager was from Ecuador, and his family had come up to visit him, and they were just walking around the store. And you get very complacent because like nobody in town spoke Spanish. Nobody. So I'm in the grocery store and I'm bending over, and there was like two aisle things on both sides, and like stands and stuff. So I'm bending over to pick up dog food, and like one of those big bags of dog food. So I bend over and I'm picking it up, and the two guys behind me are speaking in Spanish, and they're just going on and on and on. They're like, "Why don't you go around her?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding? With an ass that big? Oh my God, no!" And they're going on describing my butt, my butt, and how big it is. They're comparing it to houses,
Whoa.
buildings, and going on and on and on about how big my butt was. So I turned around to them and I said in Spanish, "Nunca se sabe quién habla," and that you never know who speaks. And so they're like, and they turned around and like took off. But it was like one of those moments that you're just like going, I just didn't need that today.
Yeah, man.
I just
Ouch.
didn't need that. So yeah. I mean, and after you lost your weight, what impact did that have on your life?
It had a huge impact on every aspect of my life. I got, this surge of confidence, one to pursue kind of my dream job, and it's always a media guy, but I was always so drawn to sports. So one of the first things I did after I recovered from the surgery was to start a sports media company. I got credentials to cover the NFL and wound up doing radio shows with a number of those players. And that opened the door for me to become a full-time sports reporter and then eventually move over into hard news and being able to cover some of the most, amazing events ever, and to be able to witness things firsthand. Some of them extremely scary, but still just being there and being able to see that and report back, that was, really a thrill, and to do quite well in that. But then also like with my love life, not having to put up with that same crap, like I'm not good enough. I am good enough. As a matter of fact, I was good enough back then, even when I was still big. but I was too stupid and, just too, I don't know, shy, and didn't have the confidence to realize it or to speak up for something. But to this day, it still pisses me off how she treated me. But anyway, I got the confidence there. And, I wound up at my high school reunion. A girl just shouted out my name from across the room. And it was, the it girl from high school who she didn't have the time for me then, but she certainly wanted to chat me up this night. And we hit it off and we wound up dating. And it turned out that she was a real nutrition nut. And she really started to school me up on a lot of things, on cleaner eating. And that gave me, that kind of took my health to even the next level. So I thought that that was really cool, like, holy cow, like, I am good enough. Like, look at who I'm with now. Like, that relationship turned out to be like just one of the worst ideas in the history of ideas. We've all had those in our life, no problem. We live and we learn, right? But then,
some of
from
us
there,
more than others.
yeah, right. That's a whole other podcast, and man,
Right?
we need a whole lot of time to cover that ground. But
Right.
but from there, I wound up, meeting my wife, whom she's on television in this market, and we had mutual acquaintances for years, and I just never had the confidence to introduce myself to her. I always thought that she was cute, but who am I? I'm just this dude on the radio, and here she is on TV. But like, we wound up hitting it off, and I eventually mustered up the courage to ask her out, and we just celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary a couple of months ago. So it's all good, and the surge of confidence that comes with it. And then when I was done reporting on death and destruction and wanted to do something more positive in my life, pitching the idea to do the Exam Room podcast and having the physicians committee giving the thumbs up to that, and now being able to talk to so many people who've had these similar, just life-changing, so inspiring stories, it is the most rewarding job in the entire world. It is great.
Yeah. No, seriously. I mean, what you're doing is amazing. So how did you get plant-based? I mean, the other woman started you on this, but what was okay, plant-based it is?
And that's an interesting story. I was actually doing a article for CBS. I still kind of dabble with them, doing some sports stuff. And I was interviewing a professional wrestler by the name of Austin Aries. And he is plant-based. And he had just put out a book about his journey. And I was asking him about it because I knew the word vegan and not a whole heck of a lot more about it. So he was telling me about it, and he said, well, you need to watch this documentary called What the Hell. It's like, it's on Netflix. I was like, cool, I will check that out, and maybe I can take a little snippet from here or there, and it'll add a little bit of color to the article. And I watched it, and I was just like, oh my God. And it just seemed to make a whole lot of sense to me. And then I had the conversation with my wife, and that was a funny one because she's like, you're going what? You're going vegan? You're already the healthiest bleeping eater that I know. Why in the world do you want to do anything else? And I was like, it's cool, baby. Just watch this with me. And then she watched it, and she got on board as well. And so that kind of took me there.
Well, that makes a difference when you and your spouse can be in agreement.
Yeah. She's a big softie for animals, so that was the big selling point for her. And for me, it was more the health stuff. Obviously, the more confident that I become that it was the right decision for me. I'm not a doctor, like I said, I'm not a nutritionist, but I get to talk to them every single day, and the more that I learn, the happier I am with the decision that I made. And to me, what the science says is it's basically irrefutable. This is the healthiest diet that's out there.
Right. No, it's true. Without it, I mean, with no question. Well, in the beginning, like, how did you, I know you, like, after your surgery, you still had to have those cravings. How did you overcome them? What was your strategy?
The thing with the surgery that I also kind of benefited from is that you get this 3 to 6 month window where you can't tolerate those types of foods, or else you will become violently ill. And I mean the kind of ill that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. It is just god awful. You're knocking on death's door type of bad. And so you're kind of forced to go through that detox.
Mm.
Now, what I recognized by that point was that I was addicted to food. I was addicted to that kind of food, and I had already made up my mind that I'm not going back to it. So even when I crossed over that threshold where I could tolerate that kind of food again, I was never going back. But everybody, whether they have bariatric surgery or they go on some gimmick diet or they just decide to eat better and lose weight the natural way, you come to this point, it's a fork in the road where you can go left and you can continue on the path that you've been going, or you can go right and go right back to the way that you were. Because once you reintroduce that food back into your system as an addict, it's on. You can't eat just one. It's
Oh my
like
God.
telling an ex-smoker you can have just one cigarette. No, you can't, because the next day you're going to be in line and you're going to buy a pack. It's like telling an alcoholic that they can have one drink. No, they can't. They're going to fall right off the wagon. And I could think back then, like I had this level of clarity where I went back and I thought about this one particular diet that I failed. And it was like I had one nacho. And I call this my one nacho theory. I had one nacho, and that one nacho just completely caused everything to fall apart and for that weight to come right back on. I had one nacho. And so my one nacho theory is you absolutely positively cannot have cheat days. You cannot have cheat meals. If you are a food addict, you need to treat yourself as a full-blown addict, like it's a drug, like it's alcohol, and you need to keep that out of your system.
But the
100%.
problem is, like you've got people putting food in your path, and it just makes it so much harder. I mean, the one day I absolutely dread at our school is, and it's so sweet what the parents do, is they bring this one, once a month they come in and they bring an enormous quantity of food, enormous. And it's all high caloric density, banging the pleasure center kind of food. And it's
Hmm.
all, animal based, high caloric density. And I see everybody, and where do they put it? The room right across the hall from my classroom. And I see everybody coming in all day long, going 2, 3, 4 times a day, coming down to get a little snack, a little treat,
Hmm.
and it makes me angry because I still recognize like a muffin. I still recognize a muffin, as food. But the muffins I make are very, very different than those muffins,
Oh, for sure. Oh, for
oil
sure.
free, sugar free. But I still see and recognize a muffin in my mind. And so I get angry and I get pissed. And I hate this day at school. I hate this day at school because it's just really, I bring my own food. I mean, even at our school, they provide us breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and at the school itself, the food is pretty darn good, except they use a lot of oil and salt. And I'm extremely salt sensitive and I cannot eat that food because just that little bit of salt will tip my blood pressure and raise it up. So I bring my food and I just stay away from that. I don't go up there. I don't eat up there. I just eat, by myself in my classroom, and and I have no problem with that. And I'm good. And there's nothing in my house that I can't have. I mean, my house is my wellness center, and that's one of the things you have to make. You have to be able to come home to a place where you're not going to be tempted.
Right.
So, I mean, there's nothing I can't have in my house. But, you go to family events, you go to parties, things like that. And there's just all this unhealthy food, and potato chips are particularly my biggest downfall, like corn chips, those things, Cape Cod potato chips in particular, my downfall. And don't
Yeah.
get between me and the bag because you'll get hurt. I mean, it's true.
To this day,
So,
you still struggle with that one?
oh, I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To this day, without a question. And it becomes really difficult because I know, like at family events and things that we go to, or parties, there will be potato chips. And it's just one of the toughest things that I have to deal with, because I know as soon as I eat it, the oil and the salt are going to raise my blood pressure right back up. And it takes several days for the fluids that will stay in my body to leave. So it takes several days. Even just like my husband doesn't understand it because he's not a food addict. And he doesn't understand this. So like one day he came home and he had these little bags of nuts. They were only like, this big, but they had raw nuts in them and chocolate, which in itself is not, like high quality dark chocolate. A pretty nice snack, pretty good in general, but that's not if you're a food addict. So,
Right.
I mean, I don't eat a lot of nuts, and if I do, I make a little dish with sesame seed and chia seeds, hemp, and some flax seeds, and I'll put one pecan and one almond and one cashew, and then I'll make up all these containers. I'm at the the bulk section counting at 20 cashews because I'm going to make 20 containers. So I don't have any of that stuff around the house because that's high caloric density. And so my husband came home and he said, "You've been really good." And he opens my hand. He had cut them open and poured them into my hand. And I just like, oh, and I ate them like an addict, and I'm like, and he left and I'm sitting there eating these nuts, like, like, oh my God, nuts. Oh! And my inner squirrel came out and I just went crazy over this, and then the inner raccoon really came out and I went downstairs and said, "You got any more?" Just like a food addict. He's like, "Well, I might have another one in the car. Why?" Like, go get it. I mean, and then what do you think? Every night when he came home for a week, I was waiting for those nuts and the chocolate because that lit my brain up like it was on fire. It lit it up. So, it's still real, for me, the struggle. I mean, I eat plant-based and, do my absolute best to not put myself into those situations where I'm around that kind of food, but it's still real tough for me. It still is, even to this day. So,
and I know there are times when I will really be craving something and I will get really pissed off. And it is a real mental war with myself not to
it's
give
true.
in. But the thing that I keep reminding myself when that happens is you feel like crap now, but you're going to feel way worse if you give in, way, way worse.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of just try to remind myself as well, like, this will pass, be pissed off, and this will pass. And the funny thing is that also sometimes happens when I'm getting full toward the end of the meal and I know that I need to stop eating. And I'm like, God bless America, I am not ready to stop eating. Like, I want to finish what is on my plate. Every single morsel that is on my plate, I want to finish. I need to finish this. And I get pissed off because that's just how I was raised my entire life. And so here I am 10 years later, and I still have those feelings. It's been 10 years since I ate that way, but I still have those feelings. It sticks with you. And I'm convinced after a decade, this is going to stay with me the rest of my life.
It's a fight. It's a real fight. And I compare it to an alcoholic, that fights the fight with alcohol. I mean, the problem is, with food, we can't avoid food because of social situations and everything else. An alcoholic can just say no and walk away, but for us, we still have to eat. And so when you're put into social situations, I think that's the toughest for me, is the social situations where you're at an event that that there's going to be food that's going to be, is calling to you. That's and the good news is, usually my husband's with me and he stays right there with me. And so, he hasn't gotten to the point where he smacks it out of my hands yet, but he's looking at me like, you know what that's going to do to you. I mean, we went, oh my God, speaking of, just what it's going to do to you, we went out to one restaurant. Well, I'm doing a mental, it was one of those fast food places, but it had beans, it had rice, it had salsa, kind of a Mexican kind of thing. And thank goodness the line was long, because I got on their website and I started looking at all the, I'm going to get this and this and this. and then you can see what the nutrition. It had 2.5 days salt in that one meal. If I had eaten that, my husband would have been taking me to the emergency room. I mean,
Wow.
it would have just, and I just, when you stop and look at how much salt there is, so it makes it almost virtually impossible for me to eat out, unless I'm going to like the NHA conference, where the food is whole food plant-based SOS,
Hmm.
and you don't have to ask or beg to have food
Yep, yep.
for you. That's not going to kill you, So I love going to those kind of conferences, and that's, like pretty much the only traveling we do, like outside. And if we do, I bring the Instant Pot with me. I'm cooking right in the room. That's me, you know.
Yeah,
So because I'm tired of feeling so sick, and I
yeah.
want to make sure that I'm healthy. So, I mean, you lost. I can't even fathom how much you've lost. Do you still have like loose skin? Has your skin like gone down with it? I mean,
Oh yeah, I definitely still have loose skin. That's something that if I want to get rid of needs to be done surgically. And I'm kind of at a point where I want that done. For a long time, I kind of considered it to be, kind of like this, cool little scar, like, hey, look what I did. And it's a reminder of where I was. But like now I'm at a point where, okay, I'm pretty comfortable in my new skin and I don't feel like I need to hang on to this like I did my old big boy pants when I would go on diets before, figuring like I would just grow back into it at some point. But there's no going back. I don't need to keep this around any longer. And it's a hindrance. Like the weird thing that nobody really talks about is like when you lose this much weight, it's really freaking hard to exercise because it's kind of like, obviously I'm not a woman, but I would assume it's like having a D chest, but not wearing a bra and then trying to run on a treadmill. Like it hurts. It freaking hurts so bad. So I have to like really strap down my abdomen if I'm going to go out for a run or do anything strenuous like that would cause it to bounce up and down. So that's the hindrance there. But I got a little bit of flab under the arms and on my
yeah,
thighs, but
yeah.
luckily, my wife loves me just the same.
There you go. I mean, I've got it too. I mean,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to do. I mean, why? Like you said, my husband, he's seen me naked, okay? He's okay with it. So,
Right on. Yeah.
I mean, I'm still working on it and exercising and trying to tone it up, but yeah.
There's
Anyway,
I've kind of come to the realization with that there's only so much that you can do, and you just kind of need to accept that. And I'm
yeah,
I'm at a point now where I'm okay to just accept that it's never going to snap back, and
right.
it is what it is.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I'd
So
rather have that extra skin than be 420 pounds. That's for sure.
I
You know?
still, that's just to be like, wow, that's
Yeah.
huge, huge
Yeah.
what you've done. So what are you most proud of?
I think, in all honesty, it's being able to finally keep the weight off, and now being able to help people who feel like they are hopeless realize that you don't have to be Superman to do this. You just need to have the resolve and make up your mind to do it and kind of stick with it. And realize though that you have this power within you that's you're so much more powerful than you ever know. And so just like getting these letters of gratitude from people who say thank you so much for sharing your story, or thank you so much for talking about this particular topic on the show, it's helped me so much. Like that to me means more than anything in the entire world.
I agree.
Knowing that I have gone from being this guy who felt like he existed only to be the butt of everybody's jokes on the radio and wasn't worth much off air, to now being this guy who is helping other people improve their own health and gain that same kind of confidence. That is what I'm most proud of. And it's not even close.
That is nice. It's such a good feeling when
It
when you
is.
hear people comment to you, Because, like, you know, I make these videos and I put them out into the netherworlds, and you never know if, you know, who they're going to touch or reach. And
Mhm.
when people come up and say that to me, you're right. It's just so, it's humbling. It's special. It, you know, it makes it worth all the effort and time that you put into it, you know.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what's your biggest takeaway from, you know, that you've learned from this whole experience?
Oh gosh. Well, the one big takeaway. The one big takeaway is you already are the person who you always hope to be. You just don't see it yet.
Mm.
And so, like, the person I am today, I could say it's not the same person that I was 10 years ago before I lost the weight, but it's not true. This guy was always there. He was just kind of on the inside being suppressed a little bit, you know, but you it's okay to let this person out. You already have it in you. You are the person who you've always wanted to be. You may not see it yet, but I guarantee that you are. So if you make those changes, that person can come out and play, and you you will live a life that is more extraordinary than you ever possibly imagined.
It's true. It's so good to have good health and feel it and not worry about getting sick again or having pain. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
It's just powerful. It's so powerful. And to be able
life
to
the
move
way it was meant to
around.
live. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what's a day in the life of Chuck with food? Tell me what your day looks like.
Well, it starts with typically fruit in the morning. I mean, I love me some fruit. Pineapple, blueberries, strawberries, bananas, apples. We just kind of cut all of those up together and put them in a big old bowl. And if I'm particularly hungry in the morning, I will actually eat that with pita and hummus, which sounds gross, but it's actually a nice combination, you know. And for lunch, it's typically, you know, some sort of grains and potatoes. I'll eat that. I really like that. We have a grocery store downstairs from the studio here, so it's really easy to pop down there and kind of get whatever I'm feeling on that particular day. But at nighttime, it is typically my kitchen sink salad. And I love my kitchen sink salad. And it is exactly what you think it is. It is everything in one big bowl together, and it is absolutely delicious. So we've got spinach, we've got some, you know, kale in there, we've got some other baby greens in there. We'll throw in some roasted red peppers, some roasted butternut squash, some roasted Brussels sprouts. We'll throw in a little bit of quinoa, or maybe some brown rice on top of that, and then we're going to throw in some chickpeas or some other type of beans in there. And then if I'm feeling spicy, we'll saute up some mushrooms and we'll throw that in there too. You know, whatever I have in there, the kitchen sink, like what vegetables do I have in that refrigerator? We're going to chop them up. We're going to put them in the salad. We're going to toss it all together and we're going to eat it. And it's going to be delicious. And now I get kind of cranky pants if I don't get this salad at the end of the day. Not to the extent that I was with Taco Bell, but man, do I look forward to eating this salad every single day. It is so good once it hits your lips. And it's never quite the same. You know, it
Right.
all depends on what's in the refrigerator. But it is so good and I so look forward to it every single day.
What salad dressing do you use?
Sometimes, like, it'll just be a squeeze of lemon, you know, because I find that with roasted vegetables, they have their own flavor to it. And I don't mind if the greens are kind of dry because I've got the grain in there and it just kind of mixes together so well. If if I am going to have just a touch of oil, I'll do like a little bit of goddess dressing. Annie's does a goddess dressing that I think is pretty tasty, but I really try to keep it as natural as possible.
I have an Italian dressing that is amazing. That
Do you now?
I do. It's
Okay,
real. I call it Simply Italiano. Do you like Italian?
I do.
All right. Well, I will share
Uh,
my recipe with you.
Please
And
do.
it is amazing, and it's so easy. I literally make a double batch of this, and like it stays forever in the fridge, you know. And I'll just make a bunch of bottles, and yeah. And then I have started learning to make. I made yogurt. You know, I take soy milk, and I make it's so easy, like ridiculously easy. Like
Mm,
you take a box of soy milk, pour it into the blender. Let's say it's 32 ounces. Okay. So that means you take 4 probiotic capsules, and put that into the blender. Turn the blender on. Then take that, pour that into glass jars, and then put the rack down in the bottom of the Instant Pot. Put the jars in there, no lids. Close the Instant Pot. Press yogurt. Done. And in the morning, you do this before you go to bed. So in the morning, then you get up and you've got this amazing yogurt. So I've learned to make yogurt. So that is really cool. So I take some of that yogurt and I add it to the Italian dressing. And now I have creamy Italian.
Oh.
Yes. Creamy Italian. Amazingness. So you can do so much with this soy yogurt because it adds that creaminess that I think I've missed for a long time. So I can now use that. I use that as a base of like, there's these it's called Simply Organic, and they're like seasoning packets that you would add to like.
I know it well, yeah.
Yeah, so you would I take those and just add it to the yogurt, and now you have a dip. I mean, like, even the carnivores will like scarf this down and go, "This is really good," because they're always a surprise, you know.
Yeah.
And anytime I bring food to like, that's my family, the carnivores, in case you didn't catch that. Anytime I bring food to them, they're always so suspicious. It's like, what is that? How is that made? It's like, really? Nobody, they never ask anybody else who brings food. You know, they'll just dive right into it. But me, I have to bring the recipe. What is that? How, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but no, I'll send you the recipe.
Please do. That sounds awesome.
That's an amazing one. But just learning how to make the yogurt, so easy, like ridiculously easy. And you've got nothing else in it because, you know, I use the West Soy, which is the best one to use because I learned this from Kim Campbell. We did a show together. She and I did almost like two of your best friends sitting around at the coffee, you know, the kitchen table having a chat, you know. And so we, you know, we talk about what foods were, you know, the new recipes. We'd sometimes challenge each other, you know, kind of thing. And that was great. And she did a cooking demo with yogurt, and I'm like, I have to make this now. So anyway, so it's in one of the shows on how to do it. And then she found, and leave it to Kim, she found this, and I forget the name of it. But at the box you put in the refrigerator, and you just pour the yogurt into it, and it strains out the liquids and leaves almost like a solid, almost like a Greek yogurt. So it makes it thicker so that you could use it almost like as a cream cheese kind of texture, you know. Amazing. So then you can make that even into a thicker dip or spread, you know, for that French onion from Simply Organic, the you know, the powder mix. That or the dill. They have a dill dip. Oh my God. That's amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
Okay, Culinary Whiz, I see you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because I'll just tell you right now, because people, I finally got tired of people going like, so what do you eat? Like, you know, tree bark, you know, grass clippings. No, I save those for special occasions. So I got tired of that, and I made a video of what do I eat plant-based. And there's a picture every second, and there's nothing repeated. Nothing.
Good.
And it's awesome because, you know, you start to look at this food and you're just like, wow, you see the intense variety of food, you know, so.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite meals?
Well, it's the salad, man. It's like I live for that salad every single day. And snack-wise, I used to hate carrots growing up, but I'm a simple eater kind of guy. So carrots and hummus to me are like a 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10. And there's a brand of hummus that I really like that doesn't have oil called Kava. And that is actually a local brand here in the DC area, but I've seen them in Whole Food stores across the country. So if you get an opportunity, try theirs out. I've really never been disappointed in their hummus. I really like their spicy hummus, which is so good. if you're into spicy things. But their original is fantastic. Their roasted red pepper is just out of this world. I can't say enough. I'm not paid by them to be an endorsement, but if they want to throw me an endorsement deal, I will sing their praises. That is for daggone sure, and I will work for hummus.
I know, right? It's
Yeah,
good
it's
stuff.
so good. Mm-hmm.
Especially when you can get it. Because, I mean, you can make it yourself, but I can never get it as creamy as the texture is from, I find it's called Roots. And the whole company,
I've got that. Yep.
Yep, all of the Roots have oil except the one that says oil free. So that's the one I get.
The blue container.
Yep, exactly. You know it well.
I know it
So
well. I think that the trick for creaminess is to take the shell off of the chickpea there. But
it's true. Yeah. I don't have that kind of time.
Preach. Who wants to sit there and do each little individual one?
I know. I don't have time for that. I
got life to live.
Thank you. Right? Just get it, the Roots. Call it a day. So. And
done. Thank you.
Right. So what are 3 ideas or tips that the listener can do to jumpstart their life, going plant-based?
Number 1, research. Research. Identify what your favorite foods are and your favorite meals are, and just start looking up ways to do it that are plant-based. And you'll be surprised. You were just joking about, what do you eat? Tree bark all day? Like, no, man, you can eat literally whatever meal you've ever had growing up and make a plant-based version of it that's equally as delicious. So number 1, just spend some time browsing the internet and pulling down some recipes. Number 2, you don't have to go plant-based overnight. So do some trial and error with those recipes. Go to the store, make something that's plant-based and try it, And I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised. And 3, when you do it, make damn sure that you stick with it and be prepared. You talk about taking your Instant Pot with you everywhere and being prepared so that you aren't caught in a situation where you don't have to rely on vending machines or, the cupcakes and things that parents bring in. Make sure that you always have food on you, and that just makes things so much easier, because we're not quite there yet where it's abundant everywhere. So if you want healthy options, you just kind of have to plan ahead. But after a while, it just becomes routine. So it's not a chore to take these things with you. Right. And so when you have it on you and those cravings hit, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about it. And that way, especially if you're a food addict, you don't have to worry about falling off the wagon, because you're not going to be reaching for that vice. Instead, you've got the food that you need to fuel you and sustain you moving forward.
Failure to plan is a plan for failure. I don't want to fail.
Amen.
So I plan.
Well said. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. Well, the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy day to connect with me.
The pleasure has been all mine. Thanks for the chat.
Well, we'll see you next time on the Exam Room.